Hello, I'm John Jannarone, editor-in-chief of IPO Edge. Very happy to have us with today the CEO of Newsmax. That's Chris Ruddy. This company went public just a couple months ago, trades on the New York Stock Exchange under NMAX. We're going to talk all about the IPO, the underlying business model, and the future prospects for this business. My colleague Jarrett is going to kick it off. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone that we encourage you to ask questions live here in the Zoom portal. You can do that most easily by just punching them in. They'll pop up and we can see them. You can also shoot us an email. And finally, if you can't catch the whole thing, it'll be published under the ticker NMAX on our partner platforms. That's Reuters, Bloomberg, AlphaSense, and Yahoo Finance, or of course on IPO Edge later this afternoon. With that, I'm going to let Jarrett Banks take the baton and introduce our guest.
Thanks, John, and welcome, Chris, to the program. Let's get right into it. Now, you started Newsmax in 1998, originally as a digital platform. What was behind the thinking of that, and what was the initial purpose?
Well, John and Jarrett, thank you very much for having me and Newsmax on today. Good question. Where does it all start? I started as a journalist. I'm a media person. I was at the New York Post, the Hoover Institution, a number of places in the 90s. And I just saw how terribly biased the American media was, and it remains that way today. It's actually a lot worse. It's pretty bad in the 90s. Now it's really worse. So I started Newsmax in 1998 with $25,000. We raised 15 million. I burned through 13.5 million, turned a profit in 2001. We were so cash flow positive, we never needed additional capital for another 15 years. And I felt Newsmax was giving the other side, Paul Harvey used to say the other side of the story, and we were giving the other side of the story to Americans that were just not getting it. And I think we play a really vital role. I saw the importance in cable TV and streaming TV that we have not just Fox, but other, the left on the liberal side of the aisle, they have plenty of channels that deliver news, but we only had one. Newsmax had a good brand. I felt like we should get into that marketplace. We did so in 2014. People said we were crazy. Maybe we were, but we've succeeded, I think, and now a major player in cable and television streaming.
Great. Now, some out there have described you as right-wing or pro-Trump. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I consider myself a conservative. We describe Newsmax as independent news with a conservative perspective. Don't you think it's terrible and dishonest that the New York Times says that it's mainstream or that it's independent or non-partial? You just look at the front cover and the headlines. You see it's just reeking with bias. So I always believe that media, and I've always held this as a journalist, but I also believe that it's important for any media organization to present both sides. We've always stuck to that mantra at Newsmax, and that we actually reach out for democratic, liberal perspective. You'd be surprised to know that Newsmax has on fairly regularly Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania. We've had Bernie Sanders on a couple of times, Mark Warner, a number of senators, even Gavin Newsom came on Newsmax. So, we try to reach out. I think that the public is served, the American people, when they hear both sides, and we're very committed to that. We are not right wing, always implied to me that you're just a propaganda outlet and you don't want both sides. So the media has become very left wing. They used to be liberal, and they're trying to redefine the center. But I think anybody that watches it, if you look at the demographics of Newsmax's cable audience, we have probably over 50% of the audience, according to the Nielsen MRI data, are independent and liberals or Democratic and independent voters, over 50%. So we're getting a broad spectrum, and they like the content.
Makes sense. How would you differentiate yourself from competitors like CNN and Fox in terms of tone and as well as business strategy?
Well, I think you just take a look at our content. The best way to see the difference, it doesn't take you much if you're on cable or you go online to see our content. Go to our website. People say, what's the difference between Newsmax.com and Fox News? Just look at it. Like, we're more serious politically. We're more people engaged, and we even over-index for people that are more informed, civically active than Fox or the other networks. And if you just look at our content, it's more serious, not only on politics, current events, on finance and health. And we do deep dives. We're not just doing, Daily Mail posts or quick hits that you might find on other media. So I think people take us very seriously, and Reuters Institute did a study last year. They said there are 12 top news brands in America now that people are going to, and Newsmax was one of them. We were the newest to the list. People just gave us as the answer because I think we are the answer to their feeling that they don't trust the media anymore.
And in terms of that business strategy, are you trying to win viewers from those networks? Is this a game of market share?
Well, look, there right now the ecosystem is pretty closed in cable news, right? So you want to get viewers that are tuning into other properties. What we're finding is people are coming to Newsmax, the numbers have been growing. So Nielsen reported in Q1 of this year, our total audience reach was up 50% over the same period last year. That's 34 million people tuned in. But what's really interesting is close to 7 million people that tuned in never watched Fox News. So we're building this very exclusive audience that's growing. I think we take from a lot of different cable news networks, but I think that the Fox audience is particularly prime because I think there's a general feeling that the current Fox is not the old Fox, the old fair and balanced. In fact, they even got rid of that mantra. They used to use it. And I think Newsmax is more representative of those principles. So again, I think the numbers are showing people are moving to us in a big way.
In your mind, what's behind that growth in those ratings, and do you expect that trend to continue?
Well, content is king, right? So nothing's changed there in the universe of media. And I think we have a tremendous, Jarrett, group of people. We start the night with Greta Van Susteren, an iconic, celebrated journalist. We have Rob Schmidt, rising star, who does the 7 o'clock hour Eastern time. We have Rob Finnerty, another great journalist. He's really getting good reviews. Greg Kelly, who was on Fox and many other he's been quite in broadcasting for 20 years, covered the White House, did many things. And that's a killer lineup, we believe, and people are really tuning in because they like the content. And we have a really good wheel going through the weekend of shows. So a lot of interesting people, a lot of analysts. Where do you get Alan Dershowitz, for instance? He's not a conservative. You get his very candid remarks on legal matters, Middle Eastern. He's on Newsmax all the time. Dick Morris, one of the most famous political analysts. So we build really good content. We're providing that to the public. There's a huge marketplace for this, right? The center right audience in America is half the country. And for a long time, Fox controlled, dominated, owned that market. And we're basically breaking into it. I think that's why investors are seeing that, if Fox can be worth 23 billion with their parent company today, maybe Fox News is worth 15 billion. If Newsmax has half the size, our valuation could potentially go into that. In fact, the Financial Times, when we came out public, did a story and they said eventually Newsmax's revenues are going to catch up with its ratings and it's going to do really well. It was a very positive article.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, are you pursuing a direct-to-consumer strategy similar to some of the other conservative media outlets?
Well, we do both, right? So many of them are not to the degree, we're on every major cable system now. This summer, Hulu Plus was the last one. We'll be in around 60 million cable homes, putting us on par with CNN and Fox News. So that's a tremendous reach that we have there. But we still believe that there's a tremendous market for direct consumer. Everybody's living on their phones these days. So we're definitely interested in having them be able to do Newsmax Plus. And if you go to newsmaxplus.com, you can start a free trial and you get not only Newsmax, our cable channel, you get our streaming channel, Newsmax 2. You get our military history channel, The World at War. You get movies and documentaries and archives of shows. It's a tremendous library. We really see us as the Netflix for Heartland America, family-friendly entertainment and news. Netflix doesn't do that. Nobody really does it well, and Newsmax is there to do it. So we think the plus market is going to be a huge potential market that's not even in the cable ecosystem.
All right. Now, speaking of living on their phones, is there a generational strategy to attract younger viewers?
Well, I think what our approach is to give news for all viewers. I like to say that Newsmax's mantra is all for all. We're on all platforms. We're on podcasting. We're on emails, we're on text messaging, we're on 20 million followers in social media, and then we're for all people, right? So anybody who wants to tune in. The fact is that news tends to be a interest for people over 50, over 45. They're more focused on it. Younger people are less so. I do think that in the era of Donald Trump, younger people are more interested and excited by news. They're more passionate one way or another. So we are seeing higher numbers. Our key demo numbers with the younger audience has been growing pretty significantly, and we expect that to do that. We have a lot of young people with shows on Newsmax, and we're going to continue to grow that.
All right, I'm going to bring my colleague John back into the conversation here. We're going to learn a little bit more about the process of going public.
Great, great. Thanks, Jarrett. We're going to get back to the business model too, but first, let's talk about the IPO. So, Chris, big news this year for you guys is going public, I believe, at the end of March. You chose to use a Reg A plus offering, which we've actually covered quite a bit, but they're not that common. To tell us why you went that route as opposed to, say, a traditional IPO, regular way, or a SPAC.
Well, first of all, we're interested in the public offering because we had so much support across the country. We felt like we're so close to overtaking CNN, for example. We're about ready to get in the final distribution tier with Hulu Plus. Wouldn't it be great if we could join with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that want to invest in Newsmax because they believe in our mission, which is to bring back more fair and balanced media? So that was a core concept that we had. Then the way you do it, I guess you have to look at that. We did not like the idea of a traditional IPO for a number of reasons, because you go and you get all your money at the end of the process. We like the idea that with the Reg A, you can raise money in a pre-IPO raise. And we did that. We raised 225 million in short order from the general public. And then we did the IPO, which was only its regulated maximum of 75 million. We did that in 3 or 4 days. And then we went public. So we felt for us it worked. Now, not every company has this grassroots support and interest, but I think I was told we were the first Regulation A on the history of the New York Stock Exchange. So I like making history and breaking records, and we're excited. We think it's been given us a tremendous investor base of people that believe in the company, believe in the stock. And so far, we've been trading above our IPO price that we came out at. Um, and we think that there's a tremendous upside for the company in the years ahead because of all the different things that we're doing.
Chris, that's really interesting because I'll talk to a lot of, say, consumer-facing businesses about why they went public, and they said, "Well, we hope a lot of our customers will buy the shares." But they were really talking about the secondary market. You were able to reach those folks before the IPO actually happened, and $225 million is quite a lot. On that note, Chris, tell us a bit about the plans to deploy all this fresh capital you raised.
Well, there's three big areas, John, that we see for growth for the company. One is we still see tremendous growth in the ecosystem of cable news. We're going to increase our content and our reach there because it'll still have 10 good years ahead of profits. It's highly aggregated, so you can build audience there still very quickly and successfully. And we, like the Financial Times says, we believe our cable license fees have been increasing with our audience. We believe they will catch up to where our audience numbers are. So we're very excited about that. Second, our streaming channel is doing well. In May, we had 22 million people go to Newsmax 2. Now that's available on apps. It's available on Roku, Samsung TV for free. It's available in 47 US TV markets. So it broadcasts as a digital 2 channel. Nobody's doing this stuff that we're doing to the same degree that we're seeing. And then third, we believe that Newsmax Plus, the streaming service that we're offering, our answer to Netflix, is potentially huge, and we are growing. We have around 300,000 subscribers, and we see that marketing that, developing that, investing in that will bring big results. So that's the plan. It's a three-pronged plan. And John, when you look at the success of Donald Trump, right? He started Trump Media. It had it had no business model initially. It was just going to be a social platform. Now they're doing finance, they're doing crypto, they're doing a TV service, a paid TV service, Truth Plus. There's so many things. Their stock value went up as high as $10 billion.
Yeah.
Now we're not saying we're going to be the same as them, but it shows that in that alternative media space, there's a tremendous not only interest in the investor class to back companies like us and Trump Media, but that there's a huge marketplace that Fox's own, they say, well, they're tilt right and they own 50% plus. In recent times, they've been on 60% of the cable news market. And it just shows you that the rest of the media is so in love with their liberalism, they don't want to compete with them. And we just feel like Newsmax is the best company to do so.
Now, Chris, you talked about these different ways that your viewers can consume Newsmax content. I know they're all important, but can you give me a little bit of insight on any trends you're seeing? Are you seeing a lot of folks who are maybe even watching linear cable, getting it on the app also, and consuming it in different ways, or is it more segmented? And older folks probably aren't going to go on the app as much, but you never know. I'm not sure.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, we've had over 15 million downloads for our app, and it's growing. So people love the app. And most Americans are now on their cell phones. They're quite used to downloading apps and accessing apps for their interests. And so we're finding like we'll have something on a cable news show, we'll do a poll and we'll ask people to take part. They'll take part immediately because they're sitting on their couch and they're going online to watch it or to participate in the online poll. So that's where you can do the two-screen experience really works. And so we've been playing into that more and more, and we like it. And I think that we're still seeing that our largest audience is in the traditional cable, and that most people still get that from their home TV, and our demographic 50 plus is most likely. We are seeing increasing growth on the mobile phone app, on the ability to watch, and they download the app, Newsmax Plus, and they go for free. They start the free trial and they can watch our cable channel anywhere in the world. I'll have friends that are in Hong Kong or in traveling on some place in Africa, and they'll say they're watching all our Newsmax shows, and it's amazing. The global village of Marshall McLuhan is really here.
Chris, you touched on something earlier I want to get back to when you're talking to Jarrett about Hulu. Now, people are cutting the cord, and I'm wondering, as they do so, for one thing, I mean, I have a Roku TV, and I know that your app is right there, so that's one way. But a big trend is also these big bundles like Hulu, Fubo, that kind of thing. Is that part of your strategy too, to make sure you're a part of those? Because some folks, cut the cord, and Fubo is like all they need. It's not quite as expansive as cable was, but it's a lot of stuff. Would it behoove you guys to get into one of those bundles?
Well, we're in Hulu.
Oh, you are. Okay.
I'm sorry. We've signed with Hulu that we're going
Okay.
to be in Hulu this summer.
Okay.
So
Great.
if you look at, so John, if you look at the cable, the pay TV, now they used to call it cable now, then they called it MVPDs. They still use that. Now they call it pay TV. So the pay TV universe, let's say the traditional cable, is about 70 million homes. Of that, 50 million are the traditional cable homes, the Comcast and the Spectrums and the Charter, so forth. And then 20 million now are the virtual cable operators, the Hulu's, Fubo. So Fubo was the first to take us. It's small but growing. It looks like it may merge with Hulu Plus. Hulu signed with us. We're on a tier on the Dish Network. We're on um, what else? Sling and DirecTV Stream is a big one that we're on. So we're on all of those, and YouTube
Oh,
TV
you
is the
already are. Yeah.
biggest. Yeah. So we're on all of those. They were the last to come in. It's about 30% of the market. Fox was very aggressive in blocking our entrance in with those, and did some things that were pretty tough to block us, but we eventually got through. And so we're now on all of those markets. And so we're looking to continue to grow. And that is a very important, and it's really one of the reasons why I think investors like the company is they see the growth in all of these distribution systems. The company believes that revenues and eventually profits are going to grow as we grow into those services that we have, the distribution points.
Great. Well, yeah, it sounds like you're taking steps to adjust to this big shift that's happening. You mentioned President Trump. If we can get back to that, you've got a personal friendship with President Trump, if I can call it that. I think I've seen a picture of your name popping up on his phone. So if you don't believe me, there's that picture out there. How has that impacted you as a CEO of Newsmax and the way you do business?
Well, we've been friends for many years, and I first met him when he was a Democrat. People seem to forget he was a pretty active Democrat when I met him in the 90s. Met him almost 30 years ago for the first time, and then really got to know him about 25 years ago. And we speak a lot. We've talked a lot, not just always on politics, things we know a lot of mutual friends or things going on in public life that we talk about or the economy and things that might be of interest. So it's more of a friendship and but he asks me for my take on things. I'm pretty candid about what I give him, and it's pretty much the same of what I would give people on Newsmax or what I share here. And so he's very open to comments and ideas, and it's a fun relationship. I don't poach on it too much. I see him more. I was over at for instance, the official dinner in Qatar that the president had, and after the dinner, he came over after the signing ceremony at 11 o'clock at night and asked me to get in the presidential limousine and drive back to the hotel with him. So, you have these very fond memories, and he's a very down-to-earth guy, and what you see on TV is what you get. And there's not like two personas like you get oftentimes in politics with a lot of political figures. So it's refreshing. It's been good for Newsmax that we at least have that line of communication. But we have critics of the president on. I want to stress this, and he quite open about doesn't necessarily like every critic that comes on Newsmax, but he understands we're a media organization, and I try to draw a line between the friendship and then what happens on our network.
This seems fair to me. Chris, we talked about some of your growth strategy, but I just want to let you come back to that one more time. Looking at 3, 4, 5 years, where would you like to see the business, and what would you like to tell investors about what they're going to get over that period of time?
Yeah, my investment people and lawyers says we're a new public company. We have to be very careful on any projections we give. So in the past, I could speak sort of offhandedly and give out numbers and things like that. History is not always the future, but it's indicative of it. And if you look back over the past several years, Newsmax has had revenue growth of over 300%, and it's just been climbing. And then this quarter, Q1, we saw continued growth. We believe that growth will continue into the future, that it's going to be quite profitable. I think we have all the ingredients you need to be a very successful company in this new transformative media age. We have a powerful digital engine that's over 20 years old. We built that on infrastructure. The money doesn't go to rebuilding digital, where a lot of companies end up spending and losing tons of money and capital. So we have that all built out. We have the growth in the cable. We have the streaming channel. It's all there. So we have a tremendous platform. It's just building on what we have, improving some of the content, improving some of the distribution. And we believe we're going to be not only successful, we'll be wildly successful. I hope the SEC doesn't get upset about that description, but I do think we'll be very successful.
All right. Yeah. As long as there's no numbers, I think you're okay there, Chris. Now, Chris, we talked about the different ways people consume, your core content from the Newsmax channel, Newsmax 2, Newsmax Plus. But what about these this rise of alternative media? So podcasts have become wildly popular. You guys actually have a pretty active social media presence. I've checked it out. But how important is that to the growth strategy, that these new alternative forms?
Well, again, our all for all mantra. We're on all platforms. We're on all the major social media, and we have a huge, and I think that's not an understatement. We have over 20 million followers across all the major social. So it's an amazing phenomenon. Remember, John, in the old days, you'd have Newsweek and Time. They'd publish to 1 million magazines to homes, usually doctors' offices, a lot of times,
Yeah.
right? And they'd say these were powerhouse institutions. They had a million circ every week. Newsmax goes out. We can send emails, text messages, push notifications, app notifications to probably 15 to 20 million people within a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Add to it, that doesn't even include the social media platforms. Those are our proprietary channels. We then and then we have the television channels where people are watching, two of those. So we have a huge immediate reach, tens of millions of people are hearing about something. And then social media is another 20 million followers cumulatively. And those people share things. So half the country is going to know about something Newsmax is reporting, very possibly within 24 hours, a lot less, you'll reach a huge amount, but it's a huge potential number of people that huge of the adult population that follows news. You can reach a whole swath of people very quickly. And Forbes magazine did describe us as a news powerhouse, so they were honest about it. And so it's good to know that we have that. And I think, again, why investors like our company is that we just have this huge reach that some of the smaller conservative outlets, I don't need to name them, just don't even compare.
Yeah.
And we're reaching the same audience that Fox is reaching, even if we're not necessarily getting the same people on cable TV through other means as well, through the digital presence that we have, the social media and podcasting. And, for example, when Newsmax talks about stories, there's hundreds of talk radio hosts around the country that love Newsmax. They're talking about our news on air. So it has a tremendous synergistic effect across the country.
It's a good historical perspective you just gave there, Chris, and it's great to have you on here, given that you are the founder, not just the CEO, and you've been running this business since '98. When we were in the green room, I asked you about something, and I think I can weave it in here. As someone who's been covering this industry for 15 years or so, I covered media at the Wall Street Journal. I covered the News Corp split, covered Viacom. What I've seen is just over and over again M&A deals. These companies are merging, splitting apart. The last couple of weeks, we've got Warner Brothers Discovery now. I mean, that deal just happened like 2 years ago. And I asked you, Chris, do you foresee any of this kind of stuff going on with Newsmax, or is your model pretty differentiated from those guys?
Well, I think a lot of the problems of these conglomerates, that particular problem goes back to when AT&T decided to buy Time Warner.
Right.
And it's like, why is a telephone company buying an entertainment company? It didn't make any sense. But they said, well, AT&T wants to transform into being an entertainment company. And this happened less than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and 2 years later they said this doesn't make any sense. Anybody, I think, sensible would have said that, right? But they figured it out, and then they started spinning everything off and then trying to unload it, and it ended up eventually in Discovery's hands with this new entity. And then they're realizing that all of their properties don't really integrate. With Newsmax, it's okay that we're in different segments and we are in different verticals because all of the properties integrate. Our podcasts integrate with our website. Our website integrates with our cable TV channel, our streaming channel. All of it integrates on our Newsmax Plus service. So it's okay that we have legacy cable with a growing streaming and digital side. It works for us. Now with them, somebody that's watching Discovery that they want to get into another channel that's unrelated or into another part of their media company doesn't always make sense. And that's why I think they're trying to spin it off.
Great. Now, Chris, we talked a bit about some of your viewers or consumers of Newsmax watching it all over the world, but do you have an international strategy per se to get even more subscribers and viewers out there?
We have a huge international strategy. In fact, most people don't know we're available in over 100 countries around the world on 5 continents. We do both licensing of our American channel. We do licensing of our content. And we also do licensing where there's local language. For example, in the Balkans, in Serbia, there's Newsmax Balkans, which is carried it's in a bunch of countries there throughout the Balkans. It's the most popular news service there, and we're told it's done in local Serbian language. They have 200 staff, a lot of reporters. They do first-class reporting. And that's a licensing and cooperation deal that we have with them. It's been lucrative for the company. And we're hoping to get more of those deals around the world. And I think that is part of our story of growth and potential growth in the company is that the US market's only 5% of the world, and it's 20% of the GDP. So if you look at it, 80% of the economic power of the world is still open for us to really, we've made inroads, but we're not yet making the types of revenues that we expect in the future. So all of that is a very positive thing for us.
That's really interesting. Chris, I've got to ask you about the two letters of the last couple of years, AI. So AI can very obviously impact the way that financial news, like what we do, is created. Virtually any news. How do you look at that? Because I think it's important that you maintain the trust of your viewers, and you don't want them to think that there are no humans coming into contact with the news you're putting out, right?
Well, I think AI is revolutionary. I think we should embrace it, not reject it. But we also have to put restraints on it. And I think it's going to cut editorial production costs, even the cost of like doing graphics. AI apparently has some unique abilities to do that. I don't think it eventually takes the place of human TV presenters. So, John, you don't have to worry about the AI. But I think that it will have a tremendous effect and lower costs, which is good. The overall implications for the economy, I'm not so sure. We do believe that AI is not always correct, so it needs to be fact checked. But humans are not always correct. They have to be fact checked too. So, but it does speed the process of gathering information. And I have found it to be personally very, very helpful in things I do in business. And so I think we embrace it, but we also be wary of it. I'm deeply concerned about the political implications. When Google started, we all loved it. It was very neutral. Over time, it's extremely biased, and they make real life decisions to undermine conservative viewpoints, for instance. And that's not, fair game in my mind. And we see already some AI indications they're moving in that direction.
Now, Chris, we had a question from the audience I want to throw in here. Every now and then there's a meme stock that gets a lot of retail interest, and it doesn't really trade based on the business prospects. But I think, I'd like to put that to you and ask, do you think that Newsmax ever trades like a meme stock? I mean, I would say that if you compare it to even say, um, Trump Media Group, you have a much more robust and developed business model than they did when they went public. So, I mean, I think there's a distinction between them at least.
Well, we reject this meme stock. Initially, the stock came out, it had, tremendous amount of interest. People, oh, it's a meme stock. Newsmax has 25-year plus operating history. We
Right.
have had tremendous growth as a business, tremendous infrastructure, tremendous reach. At the Reuters study, we're one of the top 12 media in the United States for news. So this idea that somehow we're like an idea and a concept, just people can flip stock. And I think that the market's realizing that in a very strong way, and that they're seeing that we're not seeing as much volatility as we saw initially. So that's good. The problem we're having, John, is there are all of these clickbait financial media, which I was unfamiliar with to the degree that I have since the IPO. Groups like Seeking Alpha, which will just publish things that are false and misleading to investors. I'll give you an example. They had a story a couple of weeks ago that said that we were selling 121 million shares on the market and that I was personally selling my shares. Now, this is just total lie because nobody had indicated to us of that. We had customary registered shares, as is customary for public trading. That's done all the time. It does not indicate an intent to sell the share. And then secondly, I'm under a lockup. Had they just did the basic lookup on the documents, I'm under a lockup for 6 months, but I've stated publicly that I have no plan to sell shares after that. So I don't know how more resolute you can be. As a result of that Seeking Alpha story, we did see a slide in the stock. I think it makes it maybe more valuable for investors now, but it's concerning, and that's just one of a whole bunch of things we've seen where they just make stuff up. And I guess there's certain tricks in the bag of stock manipulation, and one of them is, well, the founder's selling shares, and they did this to President Trump. He hasn't sold, as far as I know, any shares in Trump Media, and yet they keep saying and they tried to use that, and after a while, the investors get wise to it. So that's a positive thing.
Chris, we've heard that story before from other folks who got maligned on there. So you're not the first or the last, unfortunately. But Chris, that kind of makes me think, how do you cultivate and maintain trust of the public? Because there's so many ways to get information out there these days, and you know in my mind, when people ask me as a news person, I tell them really there's a limited number of sources that I genuinely trust. And how do you and trust is also easy to lose, Chris. So, you mentioned a couple of things. You have Democrats come on the air. Greta Van Susteren, I remember, was on CNN a long time ago, right? So you also have on air talent who came from those networks. What tell me about your philosophy on that? How do you ensure that people do view you as a trusted source that's not biased?
Well, I think you give people the information that they're looking for, but you also provide things that they're not looking for, and you do it in a way that's fair, and you don't seem like you're closing down or censoring points of view. And we have done this forever since the start of the company. It's been the mantra of Newsmax. I've had major Democrats like Bill Clinton come on Newsmax, so we've always reached out to the other side. And I think over time, what happens is in these periods of polarization, they'll just say, oh, right wing, or you're biased. Meanwhile, they're the ones that are really biased. The trust in the media, if you look, Gallup's trust in the media annual survey, the major media is at the lowest level in history. Nobody trusts them at all. Our trust numbers have been going up in recent years. So I think it's a very positive sign. And we try to keep people informed. We not only have our channels, we have an investment page for shareholders called newsmaxinvest.com. Newsmaxinvest.com. We give them all of the updates on the company. And that's the truth. We go through a very rigorous process of putting out those results. So, if investors want to track us, that's the place to do it.
Great. Now, Chris, you don't have to answer this, but it was in the news lately. There was a story about EchoStar and Charlie Ergen and how you may have had a hand in keeping those guys alive. Can you tell us anything about that piece?
Well, I'll just tell you what was publicly known. Newsmax has had a very positive relationship with Dish. They're one of our distributors. They were one of the earliest distributors, and they're concerned because the FCC is taking action to potentially take away their spectrum for the EchoStar Dish network that they spent about $20 billion buying. Now, I'm not an expert on this, and I've told Charlie Ergen, like, I don't know enough about it to argue one way or the other, but I certainly think you have a right to make your case to the FCC. And if they won't listen to you, then you go to the president. So I was happy to introduce him to the president. The president took a meeting, and I think the president's being fair-minded about looking at their issues. Again, I'm not very knowledgeable on those issues, but there is a sense that if somebody paid for wireless, they should be given at least the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it would be wise to push the company into bankruptcy, which apparently is the attempted effect of what the FCC is doing. So it's an area where I will disagree with officials in the Trump administration, and I will let the president know my position on it, or suggest that he seek out more information, which was the case here.
Great. No, that's a good answer, Chris. We appreciate that. Chris, I want to go back to asking you as a journalist what you think of the media landscape, and perhaps as someone who you founded this company 27 years ago. Over the next 5-10 years, what do you see coming? And would you have any advice for young journalists who are trying to get into this field? I mean, I think a lot of them are terrified of AI replacing them, frankly.
Well, they always say that these new processes, they said the personal computer was going to put everyone out of work. Go back and look at some of the stories there, created whole new industries, created new opportunities. So I'm not a Malthusian type. I think that we should be optimistic about it and see how that helps with innovation and growth. Who knows? It might help us, for instance, explore other planets or do things that Elon Musk talks about. So I wouldn't be afraid. I think the media needs a lot of good people. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in media. There's a lot of transformation. But I encourage people to go into journalism, and especially people that normally might not, because sometimes journalism attracts only one point of view at the journalism schools. And then people say, well, I don't really like fighting these guys. I'm just going to become an investment banker or go into another career, and which is fine. But we do need more people and more balance in the media. I think that's one of the reasons the media has fallen in value. But I can't really predict the future. If you had said to me 30 years ago, people would be getting their information, first on their computers and then on their home TVs through internet streaming in 1990, let's say. I mean, the internet wasn't even mentioned at that time. And now it's our way of life. So things change, and I think you have to be open to embracing new concepts, adapting to them. The history of Newsmax is that we've been doing this for over 25 years. Look back, we were one of the pioneers with Salon and Huffington Post, and we've left all those people in the dust. We always adapt, we always move, we always handle ourselves very well and agilely in all of these different new technologies. And I think it's the good team that we've had here at Newsmax, and the public likes what we're doing. So we're going to continue doing it and growing.
Well, Chris, that was a good way to end it, but I'm not gonna cut it off here. I want to give you the floor just for a second here. Is there any other item that we didn't touch on that you think is really important for investors to know? And then secondarily, what are you most excited about for the rest of the year? Obviously, going public was watershed, culmination of many years of hard work for you. But what else are you fired up about in 2025?
Well, I think there's so much going on in the world. President Trump inherited a world on fire. I mean, you have the Ukraine war, the Middle East with Iran. China is blowing up both on the tariff thing. And then domestically, we've had the 15 million illegal migrants in the country and all of those issues. A tremendous amount of political. So I think that we're going to see a tremendous amount of news that's going to come out of that in the coming year. We're going into a congressional election. The presidential election's already started for 28. Who's going to succeed Trump or who the Democrats are going to run? So to me, it's a very exciting period for news. And I think Newsmax will be cutting edge during this period.
All right, great. Well, we're about to wrap it up. I just want to remind everyone here, the replay should be up in a couple hours. Easiest place to find that is on the platform of your choice under the NMAX ticker. That's Yahoo, Bloomberg, Reuters terminals, or AlphaSense, or of course, IPOEdge.com. You can come to us. Chris, has been a terrific interview, and it was a pleasure to have you on. So thanks for joining.
John and Jarrett, thank you so much. Thank you for the viewers for tuning in and listening to it. It was a great interview, one of the more comprehensive ones I've had, so I was glad to do it.
All right, terrific. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.